Welcome back, viewers, to another episode of Environmental History Worth Reading. This one is for the month of September 2017. My name's Sean Courage. I'm one of the editors here at niche-canada.org, and as always, I'm joined by Jessica.
I'm Jessica DeWitt, and I'm the niche social media editor.
So September is our first month of the academic year for 2017-18, and you've picked 5 great pieces of environmental history content from the web that you've spotted on social media. And we begin over at White Horse Press with a blog post by Andrew Stool.
Yes, so this is about asking, are cold places by nature exemplars of environmental history? So he argues that cold places are often kind of taken advantage of, assumed to be places where the weather and nature do shape society. But because these things are so obvious, scholars don't think of them critically enough. And he also talks about how recent climate science kind of has even more highlighted that social change in cold areas is connected to natural context, and of course that environmental change has a human context. But he argues that cold places also serve as good case studies because they compress in time, quote, some of the most transformative processes in modern history, both human and more than human. So he wants to move beyond the typical understanding of cold places and look at them in the way that indigenous rights, resource extraction, etc., have happened in cold places in a very short amount of time in comparison to other places in the world. So that's mainly the main argument that he has. It's a great post. They also had on White Horse's blog a really great thing about gender and environmental history this past month. So it seems like they're cranking out some good articles over there.
Yeah, and some of these are connected to forthcoming articles that are going to come out in the journal Environment and History. This one
Yes.
reminded me of a roundtable, or what do they call it, a forum issue in the environmental history of the journal on extreme environments as
Yes.
exemplars of environmental history.
Hmm.
Your next pick is a Canadian one. This one from the Globe and Mail, and a really unique kind of post about the Garneau Tree in Edmonton.
Hmm. Yeah, so firstly, I just want to highlight that I thought this article is super neat because it's made up entirely of an Instagram thread. So it has images from Instagram with accompanying significant captions. And I thought that was kind of unique and maybe something for a niche to consider or other history blogs to consider
Yeah, we'll
as a
talk to
way
our
to
social media editor.
as a way to expand our content onto another platform that's popular with a different crowd. So I thought that was super neat, but the images themselves are great. They go through the history of the tree, the history of the Métis people that are connected to that tree, who the tree is named after. And towards the end, there's just some really beautiful pictures that show the cultural connection that the people have with it. And of course, it ends with the tree being cut down. And the tree is significant because it lived 3 times longer than that type of tree should live, and just was really important to the community. So I thought it was both innovative, visually stimulating, and heartfelt. So
Yeah, and just on the platform side of things, it is a really great way to tell a story to an audience that might not otherwise, be visiting the Globe and Mail's website.
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Now, your next pick has more beautiful images. This is a look at master plans for national parks from the 1930s.
Hmm. So for environmental historians, particularly park historians, I'm sure you've looked at a lot of master plans yourself. Master plans aren't anything new as sources, of course. I look at tons of them. They're critical for understanding park history. But I think this brings out the idea of a master plan to a broader audience, the people that may not even know that parks have master plans. And these visually stunning, of course. They're beautiful pieces of art. So they kind of bring that factor in to get people interested. I think it demonstrates, they talk about how landscape architects were the ones that came up with these master plans, which kind of demonstrates how parks are definitely planned and managed environments. They talk about how they designed communities and buildings to complement the natural environment, again, demonstrating how parks are not necessarily wilderness based in all capacities.
Hmm.
Um, so I just thought it was a nice post for people to look at because we all need pretty things to look at and it's interesting. So
And that's absolutely true that there's a kind of common style to park master planning and landscape architecture plans across North America, right down to the typeface that's used in these plans. Although I have to say, I'm assuming you were drawn to the master plan for Dinosaur National Monument because the one thing landscape architects couldn't draw apparently was dinosaurs.
Yep.
Your next pick comes from Stephen Bocking's blog. Bocking is a professor at Trent University.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to say about this except to say that Stephen Bocking is placing all of his presentation slides from all of his lectures for both his environmental history course and his environment and development course. I'm enjoying looking them over as he posts them each week. And I think it's a fantastic source for people who are looking to either alter or develop their own courses, similar courses. Um, and perhaps more of us should be doing that with our lecture slides. So not a whole lot of comments. People should go and check them out. But I think it's a great
Hmm.
way to provide a resource to the community.
Yeah, it looks like he's even posted pictures of the chalkboard notes from his
Yeah,
classroom from the
yeah,
class. And these have been being posted since this one went up as well.
yeah. There's I
So
think 5 of them for that class, for each class. So it's been 5 weeks. So there's 5 posts so far.
so follow this blog, viewers. And last but not least, we've got a blog post here from the website for the Journal of the Civil War era about the Civil War reconstruction and environmental history.
Yeah, so this is another one that directly deals with teaching environmental history, and it's written by Erin Stewart Malden, and she opens up by talking about how environmental history is not necessarily understood outside of our clique of historians. That when you're talking to the public, they probably assume that environmental history is like looking at the environmentalist movement, looking at environmental policy, and that even other academics and other historians sometimes fail to understand what we do and what the importance of it is. So she argues that her own personal research field, which is Southern agriculture during the Civil War, and also Reconstruction, are good ways to show how historians do environmental history. And then she moves into talking about how she integrates that into classes and teaches it to undergrads. Um, and she talks about how she likes to encourage undergraduate students to consider broader environmental contexts of the Civil War and Reconstruction through very detailed and targeted readings. And she goes through some of the primary sources that she has them read for environmental context, such as slave narratives and soldiers' letters.
Hmm.
And overall, just a nice rounded post that I enjoyed reading.
Yeah, it seems like it has a lot of relevance for environmental historians beyond just scholars of the Civil War. Anybody who does environmental history that covers a subject matter or a time period that may not typically be associated with the environment or popular perceptions of the environment, I think would find a lot of value in this post. And it makes a point that I think environmental historians have been making for a long time, and it's a point that has to be reiterated that environmental history goes beyond just the study of trees and environmentalists.
Yes.
Well, another great set of picks that Jessica, of course, thinks are worth reading. You can find them over at niche-canada.org each month, and you can watch our videos there each month. Jessica, thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean.